Galloway.
I'm Steve Topple.
And together we are Topple Galloway. Every week we bring you the tumultuous breaking news and the news that didn't break, and looking behind the news and giving our unique, sometimes scintillating take on current events. We're pushed for time given the news that's breaking.
Yeah.
Labour has made a dramatic U-turn on its manifesto pledge to respect the result of the last Brexit referendum.
Indeed.
Over to you.
Oh, yes. Well, where to begin with this? I mean, essentially, there's two elements to this story. Now, there was, because I tweeted this last night because I was brought into a thread that you were in. And I put my feelings and my analysis of the situation. Firstly, of course, you had Labour issue this press release yesterday saying that they were going to put an amendment in Parliament, weren't they, with their 5 points regarding what they expect from a deal for leaving the EU. Which is fine, and Labour under Corbyn are essentially following through what they've always said, the process they would do regarding the referendum. Fine, excellent, lovely. Press spun this as Labour have suddenly come out and said that they'll back a second referendum, which of course they hadn't. The nature of the press release said their position, which has always been, which was passed at conference, that if push comes to shove and we're all out of options, then a referendum option remains on the table, which is what was said at conference. Fine, lovely. However, what came out after that was this whole notion pushed by Emily Thornberry, Keir Starmer and others saying that Labour would put Remain on the ballot, and both Thornberry and Starmer came out and said that they would be backing Remain. Now,
Not just they would, that Labour would.
That Labour would. Yes, because Thornberry said on Channel 4 News that she thinks Corbyn would as well, didn't she?
Yeah.
And this is what you're referring to, that because they originally pledged that they would respect the result of the referendum. And I can't repeat the phrase that I put on Twitter last night because it's midday, but it was a cluster something beginning with an F and ending with a K. Because it's now thrown into absolute
it's a coup,
chaos.
actually, Steve. Starmer and Thornberry and Watson have taken over the Labour Party on this central issue, an issue on which the next election will be won and lost. They are the masters now. Jeremy Corbyn appears to me to be adrift like a cork on the ocean, and it's now too late for him to do anything about it. What's he going to do? Sack them? You're going to sack his shadow Foreign Secretary, sack his shadow Brexit Secretary, sack his Deputy Leader. If he could have done that, he would have done it long ago. So he has now been effectively gazumped. These Blairites, pro-EU forces are now the masters. They're now in control of events. So it doesn't matter for those who are still in denial, and there are still some.
There are.
I'm not saying that Jeremy Corbyn wanted it this way. I have known him long enough to know what his real feelings about the EU are. But he has been a hostage of these people for a very long time, and they've just now executed their hostage. Corbyn is effectively no more. He's like El Cid, the famous leader. He's strapped to his horse, but I'm afraid he's politically no more.
I think you're correct. I mean, it can't have. It seems such an obvious decision for the reasons which are probably we have suspicions about. That is that to sort of appease the more centrists and moderates within the party, appease the Remain MPs, and offer some sort of alternative to the TIG group, which we'll come on to later. But do you know what? I was sat on the train here this morning, and I was crunching the numbers, because I was like, so how many of Labour's target constituencies in the next election, that is the most marginal seats where the Tories or other opposition parties have the slimmest majority, how many of those seats voted to leave the EU? And of the top 25 seats in England and Wales, it would be Labour's target seats, because they're so marginal. 20 out of 25 voted to leave.
Yeah. I was going to say 80%, but that's getting on for 80%.
That's electoral chaos. Them doing that. I mean, even if some people have switched to Remain, some of these seats were sort of 71, 72% voted to leave the EU.
Yeah. And we have electoral constituency politics, not about how many millions of votes you get. If you get a 40,000 majority in Islington, because of your pro-EU stance. That matters zero if you failed to win a seat in Lincolnshire by 10 votes. It is first past the post. And 20 out of the 25 target seats voted leave, many of them overwhelmingly.
Yes, they did.
And 65% of all Labour-held seats now voted to leave, many of them overwhelmingly. So to those, I saw Grace, I'm a great admirer of Grace Blakely. I saw her on Twitter saying, what's everyone panicking about? There won't be a majority in Parliament for a second referendum. Maybe so, but Labour just put the mark of Cain on their own head.
Of course, exactly, and it's sending out again this complete mixed message as well. It's such bad PR. I mean, fine, this was what was passed at conference, that they would do this if all other options were exhausted, which they are rigorously going through these other options as they set out. However, just for this to happen is quite staggering.
But look, we're in agreement on this. We don't agree 100% on Brexit, but we're in agreement on this. A referendum which leaves Remain on the ballot paper is ipso facto anti-democratic, because that question has already been asked and already been answered.
Yeah.
If you want a referendum on Theresa May's deal, Jeremy Corbyn's deal, a WTO no deal, I'm fine with that. But if you have a referendum in which it's possible for the decision of the first referendum to be overturned before it's been implemented, that is anti-democratic. And as Thornbury bounced Corbyn last night on Channel 4 News, if Labour's actually not just agreeing to that, but actually campaigning for Remain, that is a breach of the 2017 election manifesto. Now, Corbyn's entire shtick, heaven knows he doesn't have that many shticks, but one of them is authenticity, believability, honest. I am what you see, I say what I mean what I say. Well, no, you didn't, because you promised the people and got a record Labour vote on a manifesto that said you respected the result of the first referendum. If you now reverse that, but 2 years later, less than 2 years later, what's left? That's my problem.
No, I agree, and that's part of my problem. And I think we broadly do agree on Brexit, because I agree with you in terms of the second referendum. But as you see, for me, the overarching issue as well with this, as you quite rightly pointed out, it's not only undermining Corbyn's credibility and this persona that he puts out there, but also it's just underscoring the democratic deficit, which was of course a phrase first penned about the EU in itself, wasn't it? It underscores the democratic deficit we have in this country, because I mean, firstly, the point of fact that the Tories did commit electoral fraud in 2015, because one member was charged. That's enough for me to say they committed electoral fraud, because they did. Secondly, 33 to 35% of the electorate do not vote in this country as it is. So that's the largest party there in itself. So already we have governments managing to get into power on really slim margins. And then they want to possibly reverse the result of a referendum,
which was the biggest
turnout ever. I mean, how much more does democracy want to be undermined, and how much more does people's faith in democracy in this country want to be eroded?
And it's not that there aren't people there, sirens on the rocks, seeking to lure the disenchanted. Nigel Farage is already off and running with his Brexit party. You've got the increasingly rancid, racist UKIP. You've got Robinson. You've got the Britain First. You've got all manner of people who are desperate to be able to say they stabbed you in the back. The establishment, the 1%, stabbed you in the back. And there'll be a lot of people, millions of them, ready to listen to that.
No, absolutely. I mean, if I didn't know these politicians better and have had a bit more of a suspicious mind, I think they're doing it on purpose. Because if this goes this way, and if the second referendum with Remain on the ballot happens, I'm not convinced it will happen, by the way.
But as I say, that doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter. It's almost as if they're trying to create absolute chaos in this country, especially amongst working class people. It's almost as if it's by design.
I'll tell you, one of my favourite people is Paul Embry, the Fire Brigade Union leader. Not the leader, but one of the leaders of the union. He put it this way last night. So there you have it. Labour's already shrinking working class base has been trumped by the middle class, university educated urban base. Labour chose Hampstead over Hartlepool.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
that is
true.
the whole case in one tweet.
Yeah.
And with all respect to Hampstead, and I wish I lived there, with all respect to Hampstead, there are far more Hartlepools in Britain than there are
And this is the
Hampsteads
point.
in Britain.
Exactly, and I go back to that statistic I made several times on this programme, that in the 2017 general election, the Conservatives picked up 12% more of the lowest socio-economic C2D.
And that was Brexit linked.
That was Brexit linked, and Labour only picked up 7% of those votes. So it's an absolute mess. It is an absolute
Meanwhile,
mess.
the tinge.
No. I just want to say there's a couple of good comments actually on YouTube. Thank you. Who's commenting? Arcade says they're stitching up Corbyn like a kipper. Someone has to come out with this plan and someone has come up with this plan and called in favours. I see the mainstream media working with these MPs to keep defaming Corbyn with unproven slurs. Yes, quite right. Absolutely true. What else have we got quickly?
That was well acted, by the way.
Thanks.
Your stage school training.
I know, darling.
He's not worth it.
Yes, Paul Cardin says, democracy and the public interest have been laid side by side on the sacrificial altar. Yes, that's very true as well. And Alex, hello Alex Tiffin from Universal Sufferer
I like
website.
Alex, he's really a top man.
He'd like us to talk about George actually, talk about Javid designating Hezbollah as a terrorist organisation, yet refusing to do the same for Britain First to a link to Joe Cox's murder. Well, that's a...
Well, foolish and pointless. Hezbollah have no need of the approbation of Theresa May here today, gone tomorrow, or of Sajid Javid, the big supporter of Israel. Go figure.
Yeah.
The Hezbollah, the by far the most important political force in Lebanon. They are in the government, in the parliament, in large numbers. They have 2 members of the cabinet. The logical and dare I say it, dignified thing for Lebanon to do would be now to require Her Majesty's ambassador in Beirut to pack his bags and leave, because state-to-state relations with Lebanon are now impossible, because you've just branded the most significant part of the Lebanese government as a terrorist organisation.
Exactly. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre. But speaking of...
I want to sweep out the tinge.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of political terrorists...
Did you see the picture of them in Nando's? And some of them look like they'd never often been in Nando's before.
No, I don't think
for example, there were a few of them drinking wine. I'm not sure you drink wine in Nando's, comrades, ex-comrades. Yeah. I think it's not really the kind of food that goes with wine. Apart from anything else, you're eating it with your fingers and then they'll slip off the wine glass.
It was the most rancid publicity stunt ever, and I mean Angela Smith's face on the picture was a picture in itself, wasn't it? She didn't know where to put herself.
Now, just remind viewers, because not anyone out there, not everyone, hardly anyone out there knows Angela Smith. She's the one who said what?
Which one? Which and no?
Well, I'm
joking. I know. She said she was on Politics Live, and she was talking about the black and ethnic minority
funny
communities,
tinge.
and yes, funny tinge.
Racism isn't just about black people and people have a funny tinge.
Yeah, that's what she said. Yes, exactly so. I mean, and yet they still managed. The most
that was in
thing,
the first couple of hours.
That was, and Chris Leslie was trying to sort of defend us on Newsnight last week. I don't know if you saw it. It was absolutely ridiculous. But I think the Nando's situation and Angela Smith kind of sum up them quite nicely, really. That's, I mean, I said it on my podcast, Topple Uncaged, search on YouTube, #Topple Uncaged, last week. I said on my podcast that these are absolute people who are reeking of desperation by doing this, because they know that politically their future is non-existent in the Labour Party, and they know that they'll either be deselected or they've been exposed for who they really are, and this is their final attempt to keep on the Westminster gravy train, in my opinion, and also
they're
get
a pretty
themselves
motley crew as well.
Well, they are. I mean,
I keep going back to this, Steve. I was there when Roy Jenkins, Shirley Williams, David Owen, Bill Rogers, all four of them cabinet members of long standing, giant political figures. I know that because I turned one of them out, Roy Jenkins. I know how big these figures were. Gavin Shuka. Anybody? Who is Gavin Shuka?
These people could have been like my neighbours, and for all I know, and I don't know my neighbours very well, and that's kind of the point. I mean, they're such nobodies apart from Chuka and Luciana. I mean, I was discussing this with Lizzie Fletcher on the Topple
Oh, Lizzie's legend.
Lizzie, hello, Lizzie. Hope you're watching. I'm editor of Unity News. Check out them. It's at Unity News UK. I was discussing it with her, and what she made a very good point that the challenge with this is that she's speaking to people on the ground in her community. And there are a lot of people who are, unfortunately, believing this sort of propaganda surrounding Corbyn.
A full third of the British population believes that Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite, though I suspect a large proportion of them don't actually know what that means in this context.
Probably not, and they probably don't know why they believe it either, unfortunately. But my point being that...
this was my Goebbels point, by the way. If you keep dripping something long enough, often enough, people are going to believe it.
Yeah, I know. I knew that, and everyone else knew that. Unfortunately, it was spun as something else, which was very sad. Yeah. No, my point was that Lizzie says that people on the ground are quite often sort of buying the propaganda, if you like. The latest opinion polling via YouGov, which we don't trust implicitly, naturally, but you have to take it as a sort of minute weather vane, came in that Labour had 23% and Tinge were up to 18% already. Do we think this is reflective of what could happen? I'm going to pose this question to you. If there was a general election, do you think these MPs and whoever else would join them, do you think they will pick up any votes, or is this just an initial kind of...
No, I think they'll not pick up anything like 18, but you don't need to. If you pick up 5 or 6% in marginal constituencies, which is where I think most of them will be standing, they won't be standing in the seats they're currently masquerading as the MP for. They'll stand in marginal seats. Even if they get 5-6%, they'll lose Labour that seat, which is the point, which is the purpose. And the very threat of it has got Corbyn defenestrated, as we've just been discussing. No, look, I think that Blairism, and he's now backed it, by the way. I mean, he's always been backing it from behind the curtain, but he's now publicly backed it. He may join it, he may be the leader of it. Blairism has the support in Britain of, my guess, around 10% of the population. And that 10% can't win seats on a first-past-the-post basis, but it can alter the dynamics of politics. I think that is it 9 now? 9 Labour have left, only 8 of whom have joined the Tinge group.
Yes, the other one was Ian Austin.
Shout out
for Ian Austin.
Giant! He has not joined Tinge, but the other 8 have. Yeah. So I think it was the fear that 8, 9 was about to become 28, 38, 39 that helped destabilise Jeremy Corbyn over the Brexit referendum.
I think so, but I mean, that's...
But I think in that sense, he blinked. It's far better to be rid of 38 Blairites. Because if you're not rid of them now, they'll stop you winning in the first place. And if you win, they'll let down your tyres when you're headed for the palace.
Shove a potato in your exhaust pipe just for good measure. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But this is the point. I mean, we're back to this same nonsense again. I mean, that he was obviously cajoled into this position because we're now...
Bullied is the contemporary parlance.
All right. Well, yes. We're 7 days into Tinge now. No more people have joined. I very much, if anyone was going to, I think probably it would have happened by now. There may be a few more stragglers, but I think
John Mann, Margaret Hodge, these are names that have already been priced.
But John Mann, will he? Because I mean, he's
got a problem with their Euromania. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to pick up many more. And as you quite rightly point out, logic would dictate that, well, surely it is better to be rid of these MPs because then you know at least you have a on the face of it more Corbyn agenda-led slate of MPs up. It's just, and as you say, that these people will stand in marginal constituencies. But again, their logic, also these people's logic defies me, because I'm back to the group of people that all parties should be chasing if they were looking at elections in the correct way, which these 33 to 35% of people who don't vote. The majority of non-voters tend to be the lowest socio-economic groups. They ain't going to be swayed by centrism. I mean, even if they're trying to dress it up as new centrism and politics for the 21st century. All right, how's that centrism going with Macron in France? That new centrism, how's that working out? That all right? Is it going well? Lovely.
Yeah, centrism
it's
in
nonsense.
France, centrism in the United States produced Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Centrism in Britain produced Jeremy Corbyn and the extraordinary result, and most importantly, centrism in Britain produced the Brexit result.
Yeah.
And all over the EU, Italy, Hungary, Poland, Spain, Portugal, Greece already.
Yeah.
All these places are revolting in one way or another, left and right, against the prevailing orthodoxy.
Yeah.
And along comes a party that says, we stand for the prevailing orthodoxy.
Yeah.
What do we want? The prevailing orthodoxy.
Exactly.
When do we want it? We've already got it.
Exactly, and I mean, it just blows my mind. The sort of politically, the past.
Well, don't let
has
it
been-
blow your mind, because we've got at least one other issue.
Well, we have this now. This is more mind blowing than anything else.
It's
actually.
the $1 million baby shower.
Oh, now let me correct you, George. It wasn't. $1
I'm
million.
exaggerating.
Yes, it was $348,000, which a big difference there. With
It's the third of $1 million
$30
baby
million
shower.
baby shower. This is, of course, the news that Meghan Markle. We love our royals on Topple Galloway. We're always keeping our eyes out on what they're up to,
Your
on
Highness.
their heads. This is the news that Meghan Markle had her baby shower in New York in the past couple of days. It was a pastel-themed affair. Pastel, which my
Why is she flying around while so heavily pregnant? Isn't that frowned upon?
is it
Even in a private jet, yeah. Well,
director. Is
she
it
was in a
frowned upon?
private jet because no airline is allowed to carry a woman at that advanced stage of pregnancy.
Oh, okay, right.
So somebody put on a private jet. I think it said anyway it was Amal and George Clooney, gorgeous George, that paid for it.
Yes.
But what about the environmental
I know,
costs of
yes.
one person flying to the United States
Of course.
in a private jet?
But it doesn't matter because the baby shower is pastel themed. Who cares? It's gorgeous. Very on trend. Nicola Jeffrey, my girlfriend.
Rowan trees
politely informed
pastels.
it. No,
You mean they were handing out pastels?
Pastel shades, listener, which is bang on trend this season. It had I'm just going to ignore George now. It has 4 macaroon towers, yes, because they had a dessert buffet. 4 macaroon towers costing $460 each. And as you quite rightly point out, George Clooney was there. I mean, quickly, because we've got
I thought only women
6
went to
minutes.
baby showers. George Clooney went to a baby shower.
Metrosexual, George, you know, it's all the
I
rage
thought it was a
these
women's
days.
affair.
No, it's metrosexuality. It's a big thing. Google it. Yeah, exactly. You'll find out what it means. Yes.
But it is remarkable the way the media is going after Meghan. The question I ask, Steve, do they hate Meghan Markle, or the Duchess, or whatever her title is? Do they hate her because she's A, black, B, divorced, C, a Roman Catholic, although she converted at the point of a sword, as so many did? And is it because, number 4, she is a grasping Princess Diana, wannabe, second-rate Hollywood celebrity, or is it all of the above?
What do I
Because
think?
they really hate her, don't they?
Yeah,
I mean, Piers Morgan is pursuing her with absolute vengeance.
Yeah.
The Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, they're all after Meghan.
I think it's all of the above. I think you're quite right. I think she is the thorn in the side of the establishment, royal promoting sort of media, as it were. I mean, I don't even not like her. I'm kind of indifferent. Really,
I like her. I
so
think
I'm
she's
not-
lovely, a breath of
Okay.
fresh air. But I mean, I'm against the whole shebang, as you are.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a royal family, you might as well have somebody off Suits.
No, exactly, yeah. And I mean, we said this off air, that the thing is as well with this, as you quite rightly point out, Piers Morgan, Daily Mail, all the sort of mainstream pro-royal press are quite gunning for her, as it were. And the royal family and their PR department aren't handling it very well at all. I mean, they don't help themselves. And I said to you off air that if this was the 90s, their press people would have been all over it. Yeah. It's like they've lost control of the narrative now, which is maybe partly...
She's got this Addams family problem of the father and the sister, and they're all piping up negative propaganda. Yeah. She's got this infatuation with the celebrity world coming from her life as a film actress, and you've got the fact that she's never going to be queen. Harry's never going to be king, so they don't have to worry all that much.
No, I suppose they can, with that in the back of their minds, they can kind of do what they want.
Really. I mean, William and Kate seem to be the epitome of small C conservatism. Yeah. I mean, they are mum, dad, kids, short haircut, going bald, her dressing sensibly, nicely but sensibly, whereas Meghan is basically on the catwalk.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think you're quite right. I mean, it's fascinating to sort of juxtapose William and Kate next to Harry and Meghan, if you like. It's the difference is quite stark, but no, I think
William and Kate would go out for a night with Eamon Holmes. And Harry and Meghan.
I'm amazed you know who Eamon Holmes is.
With Lady Gaga. Eamon Holmes is my esteemed OBE colleague on Top Radio.
Of course, yes.
He's a very fine man. I like him very much indeed. But he's not as exciting as going out with Lady Gaga.
No.
And I think that's the game there.
Indeed.
Speaking of Lady Gaga... Hey?
I'm just checking the Twitter and the YouTube.
Did you see Lady Gaga with her co-star canoodling in front of the co-star's fiance or wife?
Again, George is expecting me to come on here and have watched the Oscars in the same way I watched the corporatist capitalist Grammys.
Actually, I didn't watch the Oscars.
I
was a partisan for Green Book, as others have heard me say before. I thought when I went to... I had no idea what it was about when I went to see it, by the way. We went on Valentine's Day. My wife picked it. We went to, I think, Hornsey or up north anyway. I sat down not knowing anything about the film. I came out absolutely enthralled by it. And I started talking about it, thinking nobody had ever heard of it. I didn't know even it had been nominated for an Oscar, and now it won the Oscar. So there's a lot of politically correct rubbishing of it going on. But I'm here to tell you that it is an outstanding film with two fantastic acting performances, one of which itself won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Go and see it. It's truly lovely. And it'll make you realise all over again how berserk the United States was, is, and will always be.
That's a very good point to end on, but we must get in some comments quickly. What have we got?
People are watching?
They are, yes. I've got lots of comments actually today, which is excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Loads to get through.
Thanks.
Alex Tiffin says, I'm self-declared king of the Highlands. Legit if you go by Venezuela. Excellent. What else have we got?
Why are so many people, by the way, unexercised by the fact that in 2019, Britain has no real democracy? It has a hereditary monarchy. Prince Charles might be completely off the wall. He might be, I'm not saying he is, but if he was, it would make no difference. No. He'll be the head of state of Britain, just because he was the firstborn son to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Indeed, and as Harry Angel, hello Harry, has said on YouTube, he went, the royals should abdicate with immediate effect and return their stolen wealth to the countries ravaged by imperialism and also back to the taxpayer. Hear, hear, off with their heads, absolutely.
I wouldn't go quite that far. I disapprove of the death penalty in principle.
I think, yeah, well, no, of course, I'm only joking. Listen to George on Talk Radio on Fridays, the guy's pure class. Benefits News, hello, Benefits News. We're talking about DWP here, Department for Work and Pensions. Benefits News says, actors, try Sarah Newton, that's Disability Minister. She expects the dead to complain if the DWP caused death. Yes, there's the big scandal on that in a minute. Check out Benefit News' timeline on Twitter.
It's actually a good site, that.
Yeah, they're very, very good. What else have we got? We are appalled by the lack of democracy in the UK, George, says David Kirkham. Yes, so are we, don't worry. And Path to Autonomy, says George Galloway. The political future of Europe has been handed on a silver platter to Farage, Orban, Le Pen, Salvini, etc.
Yeah.
What a disgrace. Yes,
but by the way,
point.
if the European Parliament elections do take place in Britain, and we never imagined they would because we were supposed to be out of the EU before they happened, it's not just that Farage, in my opinion, will sweep the boards in Britain, because the most motivated people to vote in a European Parliament election are per se going to be those that are the strongest leavers. He's back on the field. He's by far and away the strongest leave figure. I looked at his Twitter today. He's got 2.7 million followers on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, I thought I was doing well at 306,000. Yeah. So you've not just got that perfect storm for him, but right across Europe, the anti-EU parties are going to sweep the boards in the European elections, and the European Parliament will be controlled by a populist, anti-Brussels, anti-EU majority. Yeah. And where's that going to
exactly? And how
I mean, we're getting out just as it's beginning to fall apart.
Yeah, we are. It's literally imploding. Much like the Oscars and Olivia Colman's speech, our producer is sort of eyeing me up, saying we need to wind up. So same as
Olivia
same as Olivia Colman.
Olivia blew a raspberry. No, we would never do that.
We would.
I certainly would.
Well, yes,
because it's my wife.
Yes, exactly. I can get away with it. No, we must wind this up anyway because it's past lunchtime.
Yeah, it's been marvellous. Topple Galloway.
Indeed.
Stay tuned.
We will be back next Tuesday at 12. But don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter. It's at Mr. Topple, at George Galloway. Also check out George's YouTube, where hopefully you've been watching. Otherwise, we will see you next week, same time, same place.